Boom.
Welcome to Illini Drive here on 107.1 WPGU. I am Eli Schuster, joined alongside a different crew today. Very different, actually, than the normal Thursday crew, but that's fine. It's a good group still. We got Alec Bussey here.
Weird group.
We got a weird group, but it's a fine group. Alec Bussey, Brendan Jones, Jake Hassan, all of us in studio, and it's going to be a good show. I'm excited about it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're in an interesting time of the year right now around Illinois sports where there's not a lot going on, not too much going on. We have this weekend the NCAA men's gymnastics championships are being held at State Farm Center, so that's pretty cool. You can go out and watch some of that. That's a pretty big event for the university to hold. You got Illinois baseball, who's still competing strong. They got a couple games this weekend, and then we have Illinois softball doing the same thing. So both are kind of in that stage right now. Illinois baseball and softball, trying to pick it up, trying to fight for that NCAA tournament spot. It's kind of a similar situation that Illinois was in last year in a way. I thought for Illinois baseball specifically, a lot of people thought this would be a pretty easy year to get into the tournament. It doesn't really look like that. They dropped a game to Bradley just 2 days ago now,
Tuesday.
I think. Yeah,
Tuesday
just
night,
2 days ago. So that was a rough loss for them. Big Ten play hasn't been going necessarily as planned. So some stuff to figure out, but they got a couple games this weekend to try to make it work. I'll be announcing one of them. So if you want to keep hearing this voice, yeah, tune to BTN, tune to BTN Plus, and you'll hear my golden voice tell you about some baseball stuff. But
something like that.
We're gonna also get in on this show about some Twitter nonsense going on in Illinois Twitter. Two bigger stories going on for Illinois Twitter that we'll get into. One happened today. One kind of started yesterday, happening into today. So we'll talk about both of those, make you aware, and in case you're not, we'll give you our opinions. And then we'll go into probably a little bit of NBA playoffs. We'll talk about any thoughts we have on that. And, then I'm also curious to throw out a question to you guys later about coaching styles currently. And this could even tie into the NBA a little bit, but coaching styles in college basketball. Recently a story about Underwood being a little bit too aggressive with his coaching. They said the university investigated him. No one really even knew the investigation was happening until the Illinois released a report saying he's cleared of anything. There's no wrongdoing.
They just dropped it on a Thursday.
Just on on an evening, hey, look at this, everything's fine. And so I just think it's worth bringing up again because there's with college basketball finally winding down, that's a bigger overarching topic of this tournament and of the sport in general. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
You want to talk some bat flips?
A lot of good. We could talk bat flips. At the end of the broadcast, we can get into a little bit of MLB. Talk about some bat flips. I'm all for them. I think it's a quick conversation. I'm sure we're all for.
We tried it yesterday too.
We're all for bat flips, and if you're not, turn off the radio because I don't want you listening to me. No, but I'm all for them. But a lot to talk about, a lot of good stuff to get into. I do want to start, though, with the Twitter stuff. Two relatively bigger stories, or at least things that bring up good talking points. And the first one I will bring up just because it was a pretty big trend now on Twitter. Started trending yesterday around the country. It was hashtag free Luke Ford. So if you don't know, Luke Ford, Illinois tight end that transferred over from Georgia. Very good tight end indeed. He was a 5-star guy. He's originally from Illinois, and he transitioned from Georgia to Illinois to be closer to his grandparents who were sick. He also, from things that I hear, just felt like he was going to be more comfortable being closer to home. Typical situation for not just athletes, a lot of college students who end up leaving, go far away. They say it's the distance is pretty far if you go from Illinois to Georgia. So he came home. He's waiting for his transfer though. He's got a pretty good reason. He came specifically home for his sick grandparents, and he wanted to make sure that his family could come watch him play. And he's still waiting to see if he can get a waiver accepted by the NCAA to get immediate eligibility. Other names that have gotten that, Justin Fields, another guy that transferred from Georgia. He went to Ohio State. He got his almost instantaneously. I would say it was a week.
That was like a week.
I would say it was a week. He got his immediately.
Tops.
We don't know what his pitch is to the NCAA. However, the skepticism around it is because of the fact that he just wasn't starting last year, kind of like he thought he would. He was the top-ranked, high school quarterback in the nation, goes to Georgia, wasn't getting the playing time right away. So he transfers to go to Ohio State, who needs a quarterback, and he'll be playing there. Tate Martell, who was at Ohio State, thought he would get a chance. He ends up saying, no, I want to go. He leaves for Miami, where they need a quarterback to play. He gets immediate eligibility as well. So guys are just transferring to play. They just want to play. And Luke Ford, he sits there with a pretty decent reason, I think we can all believe, in the back of his pocket, giving it to the NCAA, and he's not getting a response yet. While these other people got him pretty immediate. So that's why Twitter's going crazy, saying free Luke Ford. Luke Ford, he posted about it to Illinois football, hinted at posting about it by posting a picture of him, and so everyone's getting in on it.
Roquan Smith retweeted it. I mean, there's like NFL guys retweeting it.
And I think my question to the room is, why hasn't he gotten it yet? I mean, if you want to take the position of the NCAA, and try to take out, you try to not be angry about it, try to take that out of it from the start here. Why hasn't he gotten it? Why don't you think it's happened yet?
Yeah, so for me personally, being around the football program this spring at spring practice, I feel like I'm fairly knowledgeable about the topic. Luke Ford's case is a little bit different, like Eli mentioned, than some of the guys that you mentioned with Tate Martell and Justin Fields. Luke Ford and his waiver wasn't sent into the NCAA until about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, somewhere within that time frame, because Illinois football and Illinois athletics wanted to feel really confident when they submitted that waiver to the NCAA. They hired a lawyer, which is what Ohio State did with Justin Fields, and I believe it's what Tate Martell did as well, going to Miami. And the university has had a couple problems in the past with getting guys to get the waiver, and I think the best example, a couple years ago, Ahmad Starks, who was a point guard. I think he graduated in 2014, possibly 2015, around there. I think
it was before that, yeah.
He went to Oregon State, and he decided to come back and play for the Illini, and his grandmother was sick, and he also did not get the waiver to play. So just kind of a thing that I think the athletic department has kind of kept in mind, even though that's a little bit of a different show now with it being Josh Whitman's. But the key thing to remember is that Illinois sent their waiver in a lot later than Ohio State did or Miami did, and the NCAA still has to do their due diligence when it comes to determining whether or not a kid deserves a waiver. And in my opinion, Luke Ford deserves a waiver 10 times over what Justin Fields or Tate Martell does. And I think the percent of kids who are getting the waiver right now is 85%. And I can tell you that Illinois football as a whole, the coaching staff, and
they're confident.
Luke Ford, I think they're all very confident that they're going to get the opportunity to have Luke Ford on the field this fall for Illinois football. And they feel like they went through it in the correct way, in waiting and hiring a lawyer and making sure that their case is better than what it could have been had they just sent the waiver in at the beginning of the semester when Luke Ford immediately transferred to Illinois. So I think you have to give props to the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics and going through this in the right way and making sure to give Luke Ford the best opportunity to get the waiver.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and you laid it out perfectly. That is exactly the case. They waited a little bit longer than I think a lot of people realize because he was here on campus earlier. That's not when the waiver is sent immediately. He transfers here. He's on campus. That doesn't mean the waiver is sent into the NCAA right away. It takes a process. Like you said, they did hire a lawyer, so the process is extended. It's longer. They sent it in only a couple weeks ago. However, I will say there's still a little bit of shock within Illinois media and also the Illinois organization that they haven't heard back yet. There's still a little bit of surprise. Yes, the NCAA is gonna take their time, but at the same time, just even by them encouraging this trending topic on Twitter, it goes to show. Yeah, but Justin Fields got it in a week, and Luke Ford was also one of the best tight ends in the nation and a huge recruit for Georgia and a big name at Georgia. And even Georgia fans right now are tweeting, give Luke Ford the waiver because we love this kid. Yeah. So it goes to show that I think for me, it's a little bit about Illinois. I think that there's if you have Georgia and Ohio State too, with big name guys that are going to, from one place to the other, and in Miami's thrown in here as well, talking about Tate Martell. You sit there and those guys are, they're at the top of your paper. You're at the top of your list right there. You're sitting there, okay, what schools do we need to look at? You're going to go look at these schools. And right now, Illinois is towards the end of that. And I think it probably takes a while to go and really consider what Illinois is going through here. And I don't necessarily think that's right, but I think you have to understand that that's the place that Illinois is at right now.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you, Eli, because there's no other reason. Like, Georgia is on board. All the Georgia fans are on board. Illinois is on board. All the Illinois fans are on board.
NFL players are on board. People are tweeting. Yeah.
All of Twitter, it's trending nationally. The only reason that it could be is because Illinois is not one of those top-notch schools in football right now, and that's unfortunate because this kid just wants to play. He wants to play for his home state.
And he wants the confidence that he could play.
We have breaking news. Io's back officially.
Oh, did he actually?
Yeah, he made a video.
He officially announced it.
He made a video
Wow,
on Twitter.
All right, so that's quicker. That's quicker than I thought. That was our second topic of the show. So now I guess we could talk about that instead of talking about will he be back.
That's huge.
We'll talk about if he will be back.
Thanks a lot, Jake.
So Jake, producer, doing his job as we talk. He sits there on Twitter and he scrolls and gets any info that we need. So I'll just
It's actually Isaac texted me. Shout out.
Okay, there we go. So Isaac Trotter also texting in. So he posted a video on his Twitter account, announcing that he is. Did he change his profile picture?
No, it's still all black.
Still all black. All right.
Which I think is why people started freaking out because he changed it.
Well, that's what we were going to talk about a little bit. Well, there you have it. The second topic of the show was going to be about Ayo Dosunmu. Should he? Do we expect him to be back? What's the situation? We've talked a lot about it previously during the season on this show. My point of view from covering the team all season, same with Isaac Trotter. Jake, you also covered this team. All of us were pretty on board that he was going to be back. We didn't know if that meant, a lot of us believed he will go test the waters to at least get critiques, at least get information from NBA scouts. That was always kind of what seemed to be the message. And then he would be back. So this is the only reason I think this comes as a little bit of a surprise here is because he's just coming right back right away, or he's announcing it right away. You know,
wasn't right away though. He only had like 3 days left.
Yeah, he had to announce Sunday.
By the 21st.
Sunday was the day he had to announce if you were going to the NBA or declaring for the NBA or staying in college.
True. Okay. Yes, I will say right away might not be the right lingo. However, I would say this is maybe even a little quicker than I would have anticipated it. And I didn't know if the answer right away would have been I'm coming back. I thought he actually was going to go test things out and then come back.
I expected it a while ago. Like I didn't
really.
I didn't think he'd go right up to the deadline.
Jake, I'm in the same boat as you are. I thought he was gonna. It's very odd to see people wait as long as he did, I think. I feel like you look at a guy like Marcus Howard at Marquette, who announced a week or two ago, and Marcus Howard was a potential top 15 pick, maybe, in this year's draft, possibly, with a good combine, with good measurables and all that stuff. You look at a guy like him who announced, obviously Zion, I think, announced this week, but let's be honest, that's a horrible comp because it's Zion and he's a clear number one pick. Correct. I think you look at Ayo coming back, and I think the number one thing you have to look at is the fact that you can only declare for the NBA draft twice. And I think him and his camp might have this feeling, if he declares this year and they tell him, hey, you're around like a 40th pick, which is kind of where he's being projected right now, 40th overall pick. Then he goes and he declares after his sophomore year, so next spring. And then he's still not where he wants to be, and he's a beginning of the second round pick, late first round pick. Well, then you know what? He's in a lot of trouble because he can't come back to Illinois. So I think that I think Ayo's camp and him personally made the right choice for his development. And does it mean that he's going to be here for his junior year? No, probably not, because he's probably going to be a mid first round pick because he's going to be able to develop a lot in the weight room. And I think that's the number one place where Ayo needs to develop the most. He has to develop his body. That's where you see him compared to like a Talon Horton-Tucker who is at Iowa State and who is declaring for the draft. Talon's body is immensely better. He's a lot stronger. He's a lot more physical. Where Ayo, he's a lot more lengthy. But you give Iowa offseason in Coach Fletcher's gym, he's going to put on a lot of muscle. He's become that much faster, that much more explosive, and just that much more confident going to the bucket and hitting that floater, which I think is the number one part of his game that he needs to improve. So I think a lot of this goes back to Ayo's camp and saying, hey, let's be smart here and let's give you the ability to be here for your junior year if you don't hear back what you want to hear after your sophomore year.
So I understand where you guys are coming from, thinking that you would have seen this earlier. I'm not surprised. I think it makes sense that this is happening at the time that it's happening right now. Only because if you want to bring up guys like Marcus Howard, you want to bring up some of these other guys that have already declared for it earlier on. We're talking lottery picks. That's what we're talking 1 through 15 here. When you're a guy like Ayo, who's sitting in a place where he played with Illinois, he was one of the better freshmen in the Big Ten. He's had guys looking at him since high school, but he's in the situation he's in specifically right now. He knows that he is on the brink of first round, right? And he was hoping for this entire season that he could build that up. And in some ways, if he declared, he goes to the combine, he does all that stuff, there's someone who probably promises, hey, I'll take you at the end of the first round. Hey, I'll take you in the 20s, right? He's going to get that. I believe if he was going to go to the combine and go through all that work. But I think it's so hard when you're in a place where you're not a lottery pick and you think I can be a lottery pick or I should be a lottery pick. And that's why it takes this long to go for it, because you have to realize through talking with people, really thinking about it and say, okay, what's the best possible position I could be taken at? And his season ended where the best possible position he could be taken at looked like it was going to be end of the first round, right? For a while there, it looked like it was going to be able to be a little higher than that. And like I said, it could be if he goes to a combine, who knows? Because people make promises at combines. It happened with the Bulls last year at Chandler Hutchinson. They said, hey, we like you. He's not the type of pick that he got last year. But there's a lot of better guys on the board. But the Bulls said during the combine, hey, I promise you I'm going to take you. And that's what they had to do when the position came, and that's what they did. And it's just that happens a lot with teams. I think Io's the perfect type of guy who goes to a combine, could get a promise like that. But I completely understand this move for him, and I understood why it took so long to make the decision to officially announce, hey, I'm coming back. Because when you're just sitting there waving back and forth, not really knowing where you're going to fall, and then eventually you go, okay, I know that people are looking at me. I know what the scouts have to say about me. I know I have to improve that mid-range game. I know I'm quick enough. I know I could still prove my three-point shot even more so, right? Then you stay for another year. Going to an NCAA tournament does all sorts of things for your draft stock. And he knows that this team is, especially with the rise of Georgi Bashanishvili and getting a guy like Kofi Cockburn in here, he knows that they're really, for me, not even the bubble. I think they're pretty confidently in next year if I sit here and think so just by looking at them. But they're probably, at least a bubble team next year.
Well,
and if he gets in.
That,
Andy Katz.
Yeah, had him at 36. So.
Yeah. So the thing is, I confidently sit there and say, I think this team has to be in. But at the worst, they have to be a bubble team next year. And if you just get to an NCAA tournament, that does a lot for your draft stock. Just because you're on a national stage, people get to see you a little bit more. That helps you a lot. But nonetheless, the decision's hard to make. It takes a while for guys like this who you look at and say he can be a lottery pick, but he's not right now. And that's what can be really tough about it. And that's why, for me, I understand the decision going up to the point that it did right now. But that's pretty big news. I mean, he moves on. He's going to be staying here. I think that's huge. And now I guess we don't need to talk about what could have been with him going to the draft with, all of that nonsense. What we can look at now is this team next year. Now we know he's back. And now they add Kofi Cockburn. I mean, Brendan, when you look at them, what Kofi Cockburn said, I think he talked with Brett Behrens with WCIA earlier this week. He sits there and in that interview, he says, I wanted to come there to play with these two guys like Ayo Dosunmu, Georgie. He likes there are pieces there. Now you're going to see that. Now you're going to see Illinois play with a true center. They could play big now. They could play with Georgie at the 4. I think is huge. And it's going to be really valuable for Ayo to be leading this offense again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good because you push Georgie back into his natural position, which is the 4. Like, he's only 6'8", 6'9", and you saw Kofi Cockburn talk about it in that interview where Illinois needs a big man. They need a big center, and they got 3 guys who are 6'10".
They got the biggest center in the country.
They're going to have the biggest player in the country on their team next year.
Yeah, and it's really good because I think at a lot of times this year, that's where they struggled, was that they couldn't really play interior defense. Sure, Georgie played defense bigger than he was, but obviously at times he was outmatched. And having that length and having that size down low, that's going to be really good for them. And yeah, I definitely agree. They definitely, to meet expectations, they have to make the tournament.
Yeah, and I think if we look at this team without Ayo next year, it's tough to say where they're going to be. I mean, you have Trent, which is
especially
great.
with the Big Ten schedule was released yesterday, and Illinois is going to face a very tough Big Ten schedule next year. But let's just focus on the fact that Iowa is going to be back. You look at how tough the Big Ten is going to be. You're going to have probably the number 1 and number 2 team preseason in the Big Ten, ranked number 1 and number 2 in the country. With Michigan and Michigan State, they're not losing anyone worth much, either of those teams. I mean, Michigan's losing Iggy potentially, but he's probably going to come back after he hears back from the NBA teams. I mean, guys, there's a really good chance that Illinois finishes top 5 in the Big Ten next year if they play the way that they're.
We said that last year too. We said this one.
You guys seriously thought they were going to finish top 5 in the Big Ten last year?
Here's what
I thought: if they finished like 500, I thought that was going to be a miracle season.
Well, here's one thing that I will say, just from. Especially you two recently now covering this team, and you're coming into a lot better position than Jake has. Even me, I got a year. I got a year on Jake. I've gone 4 years here covering both Illinois football and basketball, and being close and literally covering them. I'm with the media covering this game. I have not seen a bowl game, not seen a postseason. And that's why I think in this room, when we do a lot of talking about spring football and we do a lot of talking about all this stuff, I'm always the guy that tries to temper all the expectations, because year after year, the expectations get higher, higher, and higher. Yeah. And I think right now, and that's why I bring up, this Illinois team with Io back next year, adding Kofi and George, it's looked at as Andy Katz, a 36, right? Yeah. But we sit here and they really could be a bubble team again. I mean, it really is that situation because you're in the Big Ten and because it's really tough to be that. And I think expectations slowly rise and rise and rise. And so, and I'm not saying you're wrong. They could be a top 5 team in the Big Ten. We saw how crazy the Big Ten was this year and how back and forth it was. But the Big Ten Conference has not been kind to Illinois basketball in recent history.
Having been on the show the last 2 years now, I remember last year, it was me and Ori and Tommy, and me and Tommy were saying, 18 wins, 17 wins. Cole Henke busted through the door and said, you guys are crazy people if you think they're winning 18 games. And he was right.
Yeah.
So
they won 12 games. Like, you guys have to realize that this is the worst season Illinois basketball's ever had.
Great. And we thought they were going to get
we thought, I think I remember on our show, I mean, especially, it's not looking at this team, especially a year before with Mark Smith. That team specifically really highly looked at. That team, people
that team, I think, is the one you should be talking about as potentially being a top 5
people thought,
team.
However, with I think one thing we have to understand, there was higher expectations for this team this year. I remember on our show we were saying around 15. I think was our standpoint. We were saying 15, and I think that's relatively realistic.
Me and Tommy were at 17. I think.
I remember that conversation last year just because Isaac and I were right around the could they be a 14 and then maybe a 15, but we were right around that ballpark on our show. And I think in hindsight, it's easy to sit there and say, there's no way they were going to be that. Right. But also, I mean, the year Trent Frazier had previously looked like he was the best point guard in the Big Ten. And he could be, like, that arguably was the year he had previously. And that wasn't uncommon. That wasn't an uncommon thought. They said Trent Frazier might be the next point guard in the league. And that's why I say this year, that's why it was tough him learning to play with Io correctly. That adjustment period added its whole other elements to it.
This happens every year where we say okay, you can pick one or two things from every season. You're like, all right, this is why they're going to be better. And then they get this, that, and the other. And then we get all hyped. And then this happens. I mean, the last 2 years on the show, this has happened every time.
Yeah, well, Isaac's number one thing. Isaac's number one thing was Mark.
Soul crushed.
Yeah, Isaac's number one thing I remember was Mark Smith. Mark Smith could be could be a one and done. Mark Smith's going to be all this stuff. And we saw what happened. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Well,
but Alec, what were you going to say?
Technically, he was a one and done here.
Eli, last week you mentioned at the end of the show or at some point in the show, how Illinois football has had all these great things going for them, and you're just waiting for the one bad thing to happen, because it always seems like a bad thing happens to Illinois basketball or Illinois football when a lot of good things have been happening. And I think with this Illinois basketball program, I don't see any potential bad things happening right now. And what I want to go back to
is... This is such a young spirit, Jake.
No.
This is such a young spirit.
Eli, what I want to go back to is I've been a lifelong Illinois fan. My whole family has gone to school here. I know what you're talking about with the optimism around Illinois football and basketball. Since I was as young as I can remember, you look at the Illinois football schedule and say, if they win this game and this game, they could go they could get 6 or 7 wins and go to a bowl game. Being here now and being a student here now and paying so much more attention to the articles and the content that is put out by the Daily Illini, by this show, by 24/7 Sports, by ESPN, related to Illinois athletics, my mind is just so much more open to the fact that Illinois is at a point where they're just right in the middle. They're right in between of, all right, should we just tear it down and rebuild, which is what they decided to do with their football and basketball programs. And look where it's going. It's going in a positive direction. And it shows with the football recruits. It shows with the optimism around basketball and where it's going with Iowa coming back. And there was a horrible news story that came out last Thursday. But the schedule that this basketball team's going to have next year is not going to be, at one point, the second toughest schedule in the country. It's not. They're not going to play in the Maui tournament. They're not going to play against the number 1 seed, more than likely, in the tournament, in the non-conference. This team has an ability to, for sure, be in the tournament and be a good seed in the tournament if they mesh well together and they play Brad Underwood's system well.
I think, and that's not wrong. I think I agree with you. I think they could be fine. I think them being top 5 in the Big Ten is really tough to go from where you're at this year and where you've been previously to jump to a top 5 position in the Big Ten. I think that's what's really, really complicated about it. And I understand. Yes, things are heading up in the right direction for this Illinois team. I've agreed. I've said that. But that that was the thought 3 years ago. That was the thought 4 years ago.
And that's what I was saying with the optimism around Illinois sports. It's if they win this game and this game, they're going to the tournament.
Well, yeah,
they're going to a bowl game.
Even saying right now, yes, but I feel like finally, yes, it's looking up. Right. That really has been the boat for the past 5 years here at this university with both revenue sports. And so it is until it finally happens on the field and on the court. You can't say you're going to see it, because we thought we were going to see it with Mark Smith. People even thought, okay, now that Beckman's gone, and they were going to give Bill Cuban an extension, and people were excited about it. People didn't mind Bill Cuban. And then Lovey came in, and they said Lovey right away was going to fix things. Yeah. And then it's 3 years later, and there's Lovey hot seat conversations around the country, which I know in this room we don't agree with. But that's the thing that happens.
So, look at the way that they've decided to build the football and basketball program. Whitman came in and said, just tear it down, blow it up. Just blow it up and build it from the ground up, which is what each program's decided to do. And that's why I think there's a different optimism around the programs going into not just this year, but looking forward to 2020, 2021, 2022, where it's not going to be, all right, well, if the football team wins this game and this game, they're going to go to a bowl game. It should be, all right, well, if they don't lose to this team and this team, they could be in the top 25 for some point in the season.
I think, I understand what you're saying. I agree with it. Like I said, I think they're a tournament team next year. I think they can. I think they're a 5-win football team next year, but they could win 6. They could get to a bowl game. But nonetheless, I think it's just one of those situations where every year we want to jump to that. They're finally going to make that top 5 in the Big Ten next year. They're finally going to be this really good seed, and the development is a lot slower than that. So I think the best point you bring up, 2021, 2022, those years, I can sit there and say, I believe that, because this is a long, painful process.
It's a baby steps operation. Like you have to saying top 5 in the Big Ten is tough because you haven't even been to the tournament yet. Like you have to at least be like a bubble team, then actually get in, then be in the top half of the Big Ten. Like because I did the same thing when I was like first on the show. I did the same thing, like saying they're going to the tournament next year. They're going to be in the Sweet 16. Mark Smith's the next big thing, and then like he transfers and he kind of stinks, and then everything. I
think the bigger point of this is because I do think they're in a better place than even when we were saying those things. But nonetheless, the big point about all this is when you talk about Illinois sports right now is, and I think sports in general, it's a good rule of thumb to take away for everyone when talking about it, is there's so much up in the air. There's so many questions that have yet to be answered. And when especially you're in a rebuilding program, which obviously we're all recognizing that they're in right now, it's so tough to say when something will finally pop for them. And it's so hard to believe it'll finally happen at the same time for both football and basketball. And that's what it's at least kind of looking to build up to right now. But it is so hard to finally, definitively have a moment that says this is the moment, this is going to move on, because so many little moments build up to that. For basketball, it has been, Mark Smith and didn't work out. Then it was Trent Frazier, but then all of a sudden Io comes in. Now it's Io's back, and now we see where that takes us. So I think there's all those little moments, and finally, when they get to the tournament, when they get to the bowl game, then we have our answer. Then we say, okay, yes, they're finally back. It's finally happening. It's just been a long, painful process, and you just have to knock on wood and hope that painful process is finally over. And who knows? It might be, but at least a step in the right direction right now is Io DeSumo coming back, and that will help your basketball team. So let's take our first break of the evening. When we come back, we can continue to talk a little bit about this Illinois basketball team. You mentioned, I think, the Underwood story a little bit is what you were hinting at, Alex.
Yeah, a little bit there.
We'll talk a little bit about that Underwood story, and that's what we're going to do. We'll continue this thing, so make sure you keep listening to Illini Drive here on 107.1 WPGU. Welcome back to Illini Drive here on 107.1 WPGU. Before the break, we were talking about Io DeSumo. He announced on Twitter during the show that he would be returning, #unfinishedbusiness. So you can make that trend, Illini Twitter. You've been doing a pretty good job of that lately.
I think they should focus on Luke Ford for now.
They can focus on Luke Ford, but that's pretty big news. Io DeSumo coming back, not going to declare for the draft. Which it has surprising elements to it, but also a lot of people thought he was going to come back here, whether he declared or not. So A lot of us in here agree it's the right move. He needs to develop areas of his game, and right now he was going to be, at best an end of the first round guy. So it looks like he'll be back, or he does say he will be back, and it looks like he will have a better draft ranking next year, which will be good for him. And then we talked a little bit about, what's the Illinois basketball team going to look like? And it's always so hard to say exactly what we could see, but they're going to be in the best position that they've been in quite some time. Just being able to have Ayo and Georgie back will be huge. A year under the belt of Trent Frazier and Ayo Dosunmu playing together will be big. Brad Underwood brought up this weekend when they had their little reward banquet at the end of the year. Yeah, that's the word, banquet. At the end of the year, Ayo and Georgie.
I had the same problem yesterday.
Yeah, right. Banquet's a weird word. But just Ayo and Georgie both getting kind of that most valuable player award. But Brad Underwood said during that banquet, we haven't had anyone transfer yet. Look at that. That's good news right there. And that is good news for Illinois basketball. He's got a pretty close team together. Guys that seem to, the more you can bring guys back, the more guys can gain experience, come back a year fresher, a year ready.
And there's something else too. They're trying to add transfers. They're trying to add at least one or two.
Yeah, I mean
they're not done.
They're trying to definitely add guys. The problem is there's not a lot of room right now. So, they're going to have to, if they want guys on scholarship, if they want some of those guys in, you need to make room. So and that's the thing. That's a very different position than they were in last year, where they had all the room in the world. They could add all these guys. That's why they're playing all these freshmen. They were able to go out and keep recruiting for this class late in the game, swoop guys up like Alan Griffin relatively late in the game. Then a lot of people started to realize who he was. So that was a great pickup by Brad Underwood. But now they're in a situation where they have a pretty full roster. So, you're right. They want to be in the market for some of these guys because there's good transfers out there. And we're even seeing it right now more and more now that the basketball season's over. There's some really good names going into that transfer portal, and you'd love to be a part of that. So we'll see how, they tackle that. But for the most part, you have a team that's stable, a team that has really been fighting for their coach. And it's been good because recently, just a week ago, I believe it was a week ago now, right?
A week
ago today. Yeah. The News Gazette, where they released a report about the university, and the university released their report as well. The News Gazette gave a little more in-depth look at it. But the university was investigating Brad Underwood for his coaching antics and for his coaching style. His practices being a little rough. His practices, yes, we're looking at a picture of him yelling right now. His coaching styles being a little rough. Reportedly, there was somebody who spoke out, we don't know if it was current, somebody who spoke out about his practices at Illinois during the 17-18 year. And so the university wanted to look into it and make sure everything was okay. Their report that they released was, there are no findings. We believe this is fine. He's doing a good job. And then afterwards, all of his players came out and said this is pretty ridiculous that this was even happening, that they even had to investigate him for this because they all support him and they all love him. And I will say, it's one of those bittersweet things because sure, you can look at it and say, it's never a good look to have to be investigated for anything. But it's definitely a sweet moment because of the fact that it goes to show everybody now how much this team really does care about their coach. I mean, they're not going to go tweet about him like this unless they do, feel like a family right now. They do care.
So it's working. Like, we support Brad. It was emphatically like stories and stuff like that about their arms being around each other and crying and hugging and stuff like that. They do support Brad.
And I think it's great to see each one of them doing that because even a guy like Kipper, right? Kipper Nichols, who he's had a tough time over the past really 2 years now to really get things going in the position that people thought he could. But then he tweets out a picture about how much he appreciates Brad and loves him. And I think Brad has taken a while to grow on some of these guys. And I think he's also not the best coach to get to be a new coach to a team that's majority, not his guys right off the bat, not freshmen, to guys that are juniors or so, like Illinois was in that position 2 years ago. That's not a great position because Brad comes in, he's going to yell at you, he's going to get in your face. And that's not a great feeling for you, especially previously when some of these guys that transferred had John Gross, who had a very different coaching style. It was very, very different. The only similarity he had with Brad Underwood, his players loved him. I mean, and it was understandable being around the guy. He was a really respectful guy, really fun guy, and his players did love him. They loved being around him. Brad Underwood's very different. He's like the Tom Izzo type, right? He's going to yell at you, and you're going to love him because he punches you in the face, not physically, but mentally.
We hope.
And we hope. Maybe the investors no, but he's going to be the person that really gets up in there, and so. I want to lay this question out for everybody in here. I bring up Tom Izzo as well because of the fact that we've seen what he's done in the tournament. That was a bigger story when he was yelling at Henry, right, on Michigan State, Xavier Henry. He was getting up in his face during a March Madness game. A lot of people tweeted about it. A lot of people were kind of giving their opinions about how this was not necessarily right for him to be doing that. What are our thoughts on the idea of aggressive coaching right now in the NCAA? I will admit there's a lot of sleazy coaches out there, but that's in terms of good word. But in terms
good word.
Yeah, but that's
I agree, Jake.
That's in terms of the behind the scenes and picking out that's in terms of giving people money under the table, dropping the bag, as people like to say. But in terms of aggressive coaching, I think sometimes, and especially right now, people are cracking down on it a little too much because it works in a lot of instances. It's worked for Izzo his whole career, and it's something that obviously with the acceptance of Underwood that we've seen from his current players is working for him as well. So, Brendan, when you look at anybody complaining about some of these coaching styles, I don't know if you sit there and you're like, well, I have a line that I like, or I have a fine line. But, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's worth even going and complaining about right now?
Well, I guess if you look at anybody in any context, there's different types of people, right? And just because you coach one way doesn't mean you're successful or doesn't mean you're not successful. So, like, you look at coaches that yell at their team. You look at Izzo. He brought his team to the Final Four. Right? And then you look at a player's coach. You look at Steve Kerr. They're both successful. It doesn't mean that they're bad coaches just because they coach differently, especially when you see these coaches' players come out and ride for these coaches and go to war for these coaches over social media, and the kids' parents talk about how impactful this coach has been to their kid and how I wouldn't want my kid to be coached any other way because this is how I know they learn. Like I sent my kid to Michigan State because I knew that it was going to be like this, that he was going to have this type of guidance. And yeah, just because a coach yells at a kid and just because he's more vocal and he's more aggressive doesn't mean he's a bad coach. Obviously, there's a line with everything, but I don't think Tom Izzo crossed that. I don't think Brad Underwood crossed that, and I think this investigation showed that.
Yeah, I think you look at it, and I think it's more related to how the players receive it. And obviously, there was players at Illinois that didn't receive that style of coaching very well. And obviously there's people who think that Xavier Henry didn't receive that style of coaching very well in the NCAA tournament. But I think in college basketball, which is where I think this conversation mostly focuses, is because you're dealing more with kids than you are in the NBA, is you look at some of the best coaches in the country. You look at Tom Izzo, like you've mentioned, very vocal, very get in your face, yell at you. Coach K is very similar to that. And you also look at Roy Williams, very similar to that. You look at even Bill Self. Bill Self will throw his coat. And you look at, those are arguably John Beilein, 4 of the best coaches in the country. All of them have been in the Final Four several times. And you look at it, and I can't think of a coach who's, per se, softer mentality. I mean, even Tony Bennett.
I would say Tony Bennett has a softer mentality.
I would too, but there's times when Tony Bennett, I think, just flips his lid.
Yeah.
And I think that it's all about how the players respond to it. And I think part of it is the players that were the players that complained, or the camps that complained about Brad Underwood's style, it didn't work for them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And yet he could have crossed the line in their eyes or their family's eyes, and that's okay. But you also look at this team now, and he didn't cross the line in their eyes, and I think that's what's important, and it's related to how do the kids take it, and how do the kids receive that kind of coaching style, because ultimately players win games and coaches lose games.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think players can lose games, but I will say I agree with everything else.
But ask Auburn about that.
I was just referring to that saying.
No, sure, but I believe everything else that I believe everything that you were saying. I think this is more. Yes, this is more about the players than it is the coaches. Because of the fact that, this is what a lot of people like to refer to as the softer generation. This is the snowflake generation.
You know what it is? It's that sports and the internet are the dumbest thing ever. So dumb. Like, Tom Izzo's been there forever, and Xavier Henry knew what he was signing up for. Like, he's not going to go there thinking, all right, Tom Izzo, we're going to be best buds. Like,
he's going to give me a hug when I come off the court.
So, and Jake, that's what I think is, what I'm kind of referring to is, the players that complained may not have actually known what they were getting into with Brad Underwood.
It's like you get a new coach, fine. But I'm talking about in the in the scope of Xavier Henry specifically, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was signing up for. And it's just sports and the internet are the dumbest thing ever because it's something like that happens. And then Xavier Henry says after the game, no, like that happens all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody on Twitter and on Facebook or wherever is so mad and literally nobody cares.
I think,
and it's over already. Because here we are talking about it a week later. Yes.
My theory on this whole thing has to do with the kids themselves, the athletes themselves. And it even is translating into the NBA now as well. Because of the fact that this is less about, my team and this is more about me. That's what this has become. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think it leads to more player empowerment, which I think is a good thing. But this has become less about, the player, or less about the team that they're on and more about the player. And the reason I say that is because, they're like, I want to go to a school. I want to be the guy. I want to be in this situation. I want to be the Ayo Dosunmu, the one who, the minute I step on campus, I'm the savior. I'm the love. I'm not going to get yelled at. And for the most part, during a game, we're not seeing Underwood get into Ayo's face, right? As much as we've seen him get into some other people's face. And that's because, Ayo does the right thing a lot of the times. But maybe he does get a little less of the slack just because, it is Ayo Dosunmu. He knows that he's the guy that's going to go get him a bucket if he needs it, right? But it goes back to the AAU situation that is basketball now and where basketball products come from. Because if a person's in AAU and they say, I don't like my coach, I don't like my player, they go make a new AAU team or they go start they're on a new AAU team.
Shout out LeVar Ball.
So it comes down, so it comes down to the whole generation that is college basketball now. And it is, and the families do play a big role in it because it's, I want my kid to be the person. And if they're not the person on this team, they're going to go somewhere else. Or if they don't feel like they're the person on this team, then they're going to go somewhere else. And that's how we're now prone to see it as media consumers, as people watching this going, I feel like that is the guy. Why would he yell at him like that? Or like, hey, that player's really good. Why is he yelling at him like that? And it's just, and you're thinking more about the player than you are as the team scope of things. Yeah. So I think that's what it really, for me, buckles down to, is just that idea of the way kids are coming up in basketball. That's what it is. You see it in the NBA right now. I think you see it with Anthony Davis. You see it with
Kevin Durant.
You can see it with Kevin Durant, sure. He's a little older.
Brendan.
At Brendan. You see it with Kevin Durant, sure. I think, you see it with a guy like Jason Tatum, who he could be a little quieter at times, be a little standoffish at times. There's just some of those players, and these are players that came from AAU circuits, that came from these things, and going to colleges where they were, the guy. And again, I'm not blaming the player. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's the way that they're starting to come up in basketball. And so it's really interesting to see how it all goes. I'll be interested to see where this heads. I think how much are people going to buckle down on coaches and these players are getting yelled at? How are these players going to feel about it? I'm just really curious to see where that goes in the future and what stories it can bring next year. I think coach conversation in general should just stick to the fact that some of them are being investigated by the FBI, and that's the most interesting
that was in court again today. By the way, not that I paid attention to it, but I did see that it was in court again today.
It's going to be always in court. Coaches
it's never going to go anywhere.
The coaches are dropping all the bags. You're not going to get. There's not. Tony Bennett's a good guy. There's not a lot of Tony Bennett's out there. There's not a lot of Beelines out there. There's not. There's a lot of Sean Miller's out there, and there's a lot of Patino. Yeah, there's a lot of sleazy guys. There's a lot of Patinos. There's a lot of these guys out there, and so I'm just waiting for Minnesota for their day. No, I'm sitting there and I'm like, Richard? No.
Yikes.
Come on, what are you doing? No, it's that where I think is the conversation on coaching right now should go to. Not are they yelling at these players too much? Sure, if they slap him in the face, get him out of there. But I'm just saying, if they're yelling at him a little much, don't worry about it. Let's worry about the fact that they're playing fair. Mm-hmm. All right, I think that if anyone else has anything to say on coaches, no. I think can we end it there? All right, I think that's a good conversation. Let's move on from our college basketball. A lot of college basketball on this show. Not a bad thing.
That was a lot.
Had some good breaking news, and I think it was a good heated debate.
Shout out me.
And you could always
shout out Isaac.
Yeah, maybe if you're just
Isaac's not here.
Maybe you're just listening to this and just joining in now, and you want to hear all that college basketball. Guess what? Urbana Public Television. You can go watch it. Go do it. You can go watch it. Urbana Public Television on YouTube. They always come in and they film us on our Thursdays. So maybe you want to hear that college basketball conversation.
And Wednesday, but whatever.
Good stuff.
It's fine.
Yeah, true. And so, and it's been great. So let's move on, though. I do want to talk a little bit of NBA. I just want to get our thoughts on the playoffs going on right now. So we'll go a little national here. Jake, we can bring up bad flips at the end if you want again. But let's stick to the NBA playoffs. Brendan, we've seen a couple games now. I know we talked about this last week heading into the playoffs. What did we think we were going to see? We've seen some games now. Are there any?
Yes, we have.
Are there any hot takes that you have going on right now? Are there any series that you see maybe not going your way? I have some thoughts on things that I think I was wrong on initially, or I switched my beliefs on. What do you think?
I mean, I was wrong about the Thunder.
That was mine. So
Russell Westbrook is cold. They're obviously playing again tomorrow, and they'll be back in Chesapeake Arena. They'll be back at home.
Yes.
That's one of the craziest places to have a home game, and that'll be good for them. I don't know if they have the ability to turn it around now that just Damian Lillard is playing the best basketball he's played.
This feels like a Damian Lillard run.
Yeah,
I said that last week.
Yeah, I think this is a Damian Lillard run.
Like, do you remember when he hit the game-winning three over James Harden and Dwight Howard to send it into the next series? Like, that was crazy. I think this is the best he's played since then. The Spurs and the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets got saved by Jamal Murray in the fourth quarter,
which was crazy.
They were going to lose that game,
and
he went 8 for 9. And I don't see that happening again. Maybe they get another game. I still think they're going to lose that series. Joel Embiid is out tonight against the Nets in Brooklyn. I think the Nets pull this game out, especially because of what happened in Game 2 where Joel Embiid elbowed Jared Allen. That's obviously going to be a big thing. I don't know. Bucks are running through it. I'm most concerned about. Sorry, I'm rambling here, but
no, you're fine.
I'm most concerned about the Warriors. I think they're obviously going to win against the Clippers. Maybe the Clippers get another game, but when they have to play the Rockets have turned it absolutely on.
Yes.
The Jazz have no answer for them. They tried to play the style that the Bucks did, and that was kind of successful. But the Rockets and Mike D'Antoni, he's been able to find that man in the corner and absolutely change their offense to have that corner three, which is really good. The Warriors, obviously, they're losing DeMarcus Cousins. I don't know if they'll have that help in the paint to either stop
Andrew Bogut, dude.
Fair, but
he's a brick wall.
Either stop James Harden from driving or that lob to Clint Capella.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is a really good, playoff.
It's turned out to be pretty interesting. Yeah, Alec. When you look at the East right now, what are your thoughts with what you've seen in the East? I think last night we saw a pretty good competitive game between the Celtics and the Pacers, which was more what I was hoping that series would be. It looks like it'll be the Celtics that run away with it. But in the East, have you seen anything exciting going on? I think it's been I guess you have the 76ers and the Nets, which has been a good series.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Ben Simmons is going to have to step up, I think, for them to not just get past the Nets, obviously, but for them to make a run. I think all three of us agreed last week that there's a chance that they make it to the finals. So I guess the 76ers and having Ben Simmons step up and find a way to hit a 3-point shot for once in his life.
It would never happen.
Which isn't going to happen, but at least getting to the basket and being competent on offense would be huge for them.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy Butler continuing to play well like he did in the game 1. It was, right? Yeah. Where he
scored 40.
Outstanding. I think that's really important. And Boston looks good.
Yeah.
So far, I mean, they're up 2, but I'm not super surprised. Like, I thought that there's a chance that they make it to the finals too. I don't know.
Yeah.
The East to me hasn't really been that intriguing. To me, I think, like you said, it's going back to the West and how are the Warriors really going to fare against the Rockets in the second round? And I'm going to stand by my pick, and I still think the Warriors are going to win the finals because they have 4 All-Stars. So
yeah,
I think they're going to be fine.
When I look at the East, what I'm kind of interested in right now is where the 76ers are going to land in all of this, because the 76ers kind of feel like Duke to me right now, in the sense that they have a lot of the individual talent on their team that's really good. I mean, when you think about it, it's like they have Simmons and Embiid, who we know can work together and play well. But then you add Butler to that, and then you add Tobias Harris to that, who's kind of been non-existent. And those are 4 really good teams. Those are 4 like lottery picks, for you. So like all the guys that are really good. But is it the best team? And that's what we saw with Duke, is like they're not the best team, but they have the most talent. So that's why a lot of people were like, they have to win. They have the most talent. But then what would we see? Well, no, the best team won. And the best team was Virginia. At the end of the day, that was kind of the best team that played together. And so I think that's what I'm scared for the 76ers right now, because I go, the Nets are a better team than you right now. I mean, right now you look at it and they go, that's a better team. They play together a lot better.
And props to D'Angelo Russell for not giving up on his career after the Lakers traded him and sticking.
I think it just adds that chip on his shoulder.
I know, that's where I was going. I think he shows a chip on his shoulder and he wants to prove people wrong. Yeah. And props to him for that.
Yeah, he's done a great job with it, and so I think that's why right now I think this, especially the East, but in general, I think this playoffs is really intriguing right now, because it comes down to like, all right, this might actually go to who's the best team. I think, like in how they play as a team, because I think it's interesting looking at the Warriors and Rockets situation right now, because it's just like the Warriors have been the mix of both of that, the best team and the best players, right? But they've always had their, especially since last year, have had their problems, have had their rifts on the team that everyone knows. I think the biggest problems probably surface around Durant and where he's going to go. And, Durant and Draymond Green have had their fights.
I know where he's not going to go.
And
Brendan
on the hot ship that he's going to go to.
Say it.
He's going to go to the Bulls. Yeah, Brendan, what do you think about Durant?
If y'all were listening tomorrow or yesterday, you heard
Which you should be.
But I think that in the back of his mind, I don't think he's going to be there, but in the back of his mind, he wants to go to Chicago. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to go to Chicago?
Why not? Chicago's great. I love the city. Hey,
yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Can you explain your reasoning behind this? Just because
we'll
I
go
like
back
it.
to it real quick.
And start with the hat.
Okay, so
I have noticed that. I brought it up before you even said it. I was like, he's been wearing a lot of White Sox hats.
So look back in the last 3 months. How many times has Kevin Durant showed up to a post-game interview with the Sox hat on? Right.
A lot.
A lot.
If he wears a Cub hat, is it a done deal?
Is it if he wears a Cubs hat?
Can you see Durant wearing a Cubs hat? Like I can't visually.
Is it a done deal if he wears a Cubs hat to the press conference?
I can't visualize. If he wears a Bulls hat, I'll say it's a done deal. I can't.
You'll get fined.
I can't visually see him wearing a Cubs hat.
Yeah.
Like
it doesn't work.
Just doesn't work.
He's trying to play the tough guy. That's why he's wearing the black White Sox hat.
Yeah.
But no, he'll never wear the Cubs hat. But two, he doesn't really need to win anymore, especially if he wins a championship this year.
I just like that. He doesn't need to win. He'll go to the Bulls. The Bulls aren't going to win.
He wants to go to the Knicks, so like, what's the difference?
Sure,
exactly.
But I think they know the Knicks could land Zion. The Knicks can land Kyrie.
The Bulls could land Zion.
They're not that far off from statistics.
True.
But and also he wants to make money. The Bulls aren't paying a lot of people right now, big money, so that's good. The last reason is when he was talking about Pat Beverly, he talked about how
the final connection.
That kid's from Chicago.
They know how to play.
They know how to play in Chicago. They play I don't think he'll go there. I think it'll be a bad like basketball move for him to go there. But I think in the back of his mind, he wants to go to Chicago.
Sure. I can believe it.
You're great at reading between the lines. You'd be great at covering recruiting.
I do believe the one thing I will use to the way that theory is debunked for me is actually the last point, because I think he would never want to play with Patrick Beverly on the same team.
But you never thought LeBron and Lance Stevenson would want to play together, and look at them. They were like, let's play together in the Lakers and let's be best friends.
I think that was more of, I don't know. I think that was LeBron just like, I want to play with Lance. Lance is like, what? He's like,
also,
oh my God.
I don't know.
You'll pay me how much?
I don't know if Kevin Durant could necessarily handle playing in Chicago. I feel like there's a lot of expectations.
Isn't New York worse though?
No, New York is definitely worse. But I think there's more opportunities because of Kyrie, because Kyrie has shown interest, and because they might get Zion Williamson. There's more incentive to go play in New York rather than playing in
Oklahoma City was the best place for him. And he doesn't like the media. Apparently, he just hates the media.
Especially these last 3 years.
I feel like maybe Oklahoma City might just be.
You get called a snake enough times.
Well, it's kind of like Kawhi,
or like a small market team.
It's similar to Kawhi, where I think that the Raptors are a really good spot for Kawhi because I don't think he's going to have a lot of attention around him. And then I think the next best landing spot for Kawhi, I agree with it being the Clippers. I know it's LA, but there'll always be the little brother to the Lakers, and he could still kind of be in the shadow of things if he's with the Clippers. So I can understand a move to the Clippers as well. But it's like Kawhi. He doesn't want to be Kawhi Leonard does not want to be in the limelight. Kevin Durant is getting to the point in his career right now where I think he does not want to be in the limelight. I think when he was on the Thunder, he didn't mind it. I think it's because it was a small market, but he didn't mind it. And I think he at the beginning didn't mind it with the he kind of liked playing the villain a little bit. But now I think he's in a situation where he doesn't love it.
He liked playing that villain when he first got to Miami.
Yeah,
and but then it comes out a couple years later, he hated it
because you want people to love you.
Exactly. Because in OKC, everybody loved him. Everybody loved that team. They were young. They were exciting to watch. They were cool guys. Whatever. They loved each other. But then as he goes, that first year you saw him play the villain. You saw him whatever that photo shoot was, like the next chapter or whatever. whatever.
Yeah.
And he was cool with playing that for a minute. And then, you get called a cupcake, and Jake said you get called snake enough times, and people start coming at you on social media. You get some burner accounts and
people
everything.
were like, wait, no, I don't like this. Like, stop.
Right. And it's hard to do it. Constant scrutiny. Like, I don't
Especially
blame him.
when,
It's hard.
like, the first memory that people really have of you in the NBA is him crying and thanking his mom when he won the MVP. Like, like, he went from being the most lovable person in the NBA to, wow, he went and signed with the Warriors. Wow, what a...
Well, that's the thing. It does not help that the worst thing he did was, because he could have left the Thunder and gone to, let's say, the Knicks just straight from the Thunder, let's say, then the Oklahoma City would have just been the only people that hated him.
Yeah.
But it's because he went to the team that beat him and won the championship before he left.
Before our listeners started thinking that we're all like, oh yeah, he made a great choice by going into the Warriors. I think all of us kind of understand like the decision behind it and him wanting to win.
He made the right choice.
I agree. I think all three of us agree that he made the right choice for his career and wanting to win. But we're also on the fence, like, okay, well, come on, like the Warriors, like really, but we see that he made the right career choice.
Well, no, we understand why there's hate, but we understand that it was the right move, but at some point the hate grows old, and that's why you want to leave, and that's why you consider going somewhere else. And if he does go to New York, he could be the guy that's loved in New York, right? He could be that lovable figure. So there's a lot of reasonings for him to move on from it, but I think that has to wrap it up. I think there's a good NBA playoffs in store for us to continue. A lot of good games, and I'm excited. So, Brendan, what's your hot take for tonight? Basketball.
Do I have to make another one on the spot?
Yeah, you got to. I'm going on the spot. This is it. We're done right now. So
Pat Beverly and Kevin Durant will play with each other before their career is over.
Oh, that's your hot take. That's a general NBA hot take. Okay.
I don't know.
The Magic. All right.
Magic.
Good.
Sure.
Yeah, they're going to go to Orlando.
I'm just going to say Ben Simmons continues to be a coward and won't shoot a jumper.
Okay. Oh, that's not a hot take. That's a belief.
No, he's just scared.
I think that's a religion. I think that's a religion
he's a coward.
People believe that. All right.
He's scared. He's a coward.
That does it for us. Thank you for listening. This has been Illini Drive here on 107.1 WPGU.